So we're going to do this. I did mention the other day that I'd bring up the kidnapping. Uh, we were kidnapped. We were definitely kidnapped. 100% on myself and my brothers. I guess we are going to try and fit this into how whether an INFJ is born or made, but yeah, we were definitely kidnapped. And so I would have been. We'll start at 8. It was 9 when we were kidnapped. It was I was 9. The next brother down would have been 3 years younger than me, so he'd be 5 or 6, and then another one below that, 18 months below that, he'd be 4 or 5, whatever, and another one below that, 18 months old, sort of thing. So I'll just drop back in time a little bit, like the 6 months or 9 months before that, where my folks had built this nice house, the first house that been built. Obviously, the business was doing pretty good and all that sort of stuff. And my dad had lots of friends that were, tradies as well, and builders. He had lots of friends. He was a very, very popular bloke, and threw all the best parties and all that sort of stuff. So built this nice big house, sort of on the side of a hill and stuff. A little bit of property, had swimming pool, big barbecue area, and I remember it was a 2-story house with a veranda around 2 sides, and then the other side was sort of into the side of the hill. And there's a flock of galahs. A flock of galahs. Anyway, that's just a little side note. Anyway, there's like 100, no, more than 100, 200 going across the road. I don't know how they're not getting nailed. Anyway, so we had this house, and they had this veranda around the side. Had a trampoline, big huge trampoline on the side, and I do sort of remember somehow this trampoline come into play here, because that was where my mum taught me judo. I don't know that she even knew judo, but she taught me how to do judo falls and stuff like that. All this practice on the trampoline and stuff like that. And I just remember one weekend my dad would have been out hunting, and this bloke come around, from my dad's work, and he was sort of hanging around a little bit, like, yeah. I'm 8 or 9, and I'm thinking, yeah, all right, what's going on? Within 6 months from there, one night, my mother came to me with my atlas, world atlas. It was a textbook you had to have for school, one they bought, had my name inside it, all that sort of thing. That'll come into the story later maybe, but she sat me down in the lounge room. All the other kids are asleep by that stage or something like that. It was night time. My dad wasn't there. He was probably out drinking with his mates. It's all good, whatever. And we could have been working, actually. Could have actually been working. You do a lot of that sort of stuff as a mechanic. You do some late nights of work. That's all normal. And she pulled out this atlas, and she showed me a picture of Australia. And we're in New Zealand. We're from New Zealand. So she showed me a picture of Australia. And she, oh yeah, that's Australia, yeah. What do you think of that? Well, like, you can tell she's going somewhere. I mean, INFJs, you can't put much over them, really. They know something's going on. There's something. Hang on, this is a loaded question. Show me a picture of Australia in my own atlas that everyone else is away. This is an alone time. It's sort of manufactured alone time. And you bring up this thing and you say, what do you think of that country? What sort of question is that? To an 8 or 9 year old kid, you know? What sort of question is that? So, maybe I hit her up with a question. What are you talking about? You know, like, would you like to go and live there with this other fella? This friend of this fella that works for me, Dad. Way younger than her, and I just look at her like, the hell are you talking about, woman? You know, and it was like I said no in a very forceful way, but without saying no, just by looking at her, going, what the? Didn't talk about it again. Did not talk about it again. I think she was too embarrassed or ashamed or something to bring it up again. She didn't bring it up again, that's for sure. But within a few weeks or a month or two or three, some period down the line. In fact, I didn't bring my atlas home ever after that. I left it at school in my desk. That's going to be funny, but later on. But there was a day that she told me, it could have been, it was a weekday. And she told me that make sure you come straight home today. Just the way that she said it. And then she sort of reiterated it. Make sure you come straight home today, right? Straight home after school. Don't go off playing with any kids or anything. Come straight home. Okay. So, with me bike that I'd got for a Christmas present a couple of years previously, off I went to school, and of course, I know something's up. I don't know what's up, but I know something is up. So there's no way I was going home straight away. Something was up. And so just down the road from home was a butcher shop, and that butcher was a very good mate of my dad's. And they would go on to become business partners in another venture later on, but they were good hunting mates and that sort of thing. And he came out of the shop and said, "Hey, your mum's looking for you," and said if I see you, to send her straight home. Wow. I dawdled home, and by this stage I'm a couple of hours late, and so waiting. Our house was at the beginning of a hill, and the road went up the hill beside it on the right hand side, and so there was a car parked up past our driveway, sort of above our house. There was a little track that went down to the house as well, but it was like a little bush track that the Maori kids come and use to come and steal stuff. And anyway, there's a car parked up there, and she gets out of the car. Like, hang on, the driveway's way back down here. Why are you up there? And she was yelling and screaming at me, and hurry up, come on. No, don't go down there, come up here. So I went up, pushed my bike up to the car there. She just grabs this bike, which was a your first bike, when you get given your first bike at Christmas, it's a big deal. But she grabbed this thing with two hands and flung it into the bushes down the hill. Bundled me into the car, and just can't remember if my brothers were there or not, or they had already been stashed somewhere. So this lady that was facilitating it was actually a wife of someone else that works for me dad, and I just, if they knew what went on, they'd been played, and they'd have to be embarrassed. I did see them at one of my dad's parties very many years later, and I just couldn't talk to her. She was playing nice enough and stuff like that, but flock of galahs. I mean, bright and shiny. Why wouldn't you look away? But she facilitated in a kidnapping. Whatever justification that, she'd been told a story, and but she wasn't there to know whether what was right or wrong. I know I was there. So I was in the house at least, so I could hear everything that went on. So I sort of know. But anyway, the problem was that because I dawdled and waylaid myself, it meant that the flight that she'd booked for all of us to be, coinciding with just after school and jump on the plane and disappear to the other end of the country, that didn't fly. Well, we didn't make that flight. So we got bundled into a motel, and we had to wait again for another flight. So it turns out later on, we found out that she had been smuggling money out of the business so that she could go and make this escape. She'd been, doing a bit of a dodgy. This day and age, you could easily prosecute for that for sure. There'd be other ways of looking at it too, though. But so we had to go and hide out in a motel. It was just down the road from my grandparents' place too, where I used to run away to all the time. And I ran away from school, or I ran away from home and ran to my grandparents' place. If I ran away from my cousin's birthday party out in the country, I'd run away to my grandparents' place. So it was just down the road, but we were told we weren't allowed to go outside whatsoever. Don't go outside, no one can see you, you're not here. This is weird, like it's just that feeling of fear that's put on you, much like the pandemic and stuff like that, and all sorts of other things that when you put that fear onto people, they're like, oh gee. But I'm still processing all this. I'm thinking, hang on, I don't know, this is still not right. This is all what, so I'm feeling real bad because I'm thinking, this isn't right, but I'm not quite, I'm not quite able to sort of stand up and go, no. But she went out at one stage. I think she must have gone out to organise the flights or something like that, or get food or something. I don't know. We were there for like 2 days in this little motel, and there was a trampoline outside the window. We could see it. So we had to go. If we were going to go outside, we were going to go down to the end of the block of units and then back around to where this trampoline was. And so, cheeky little shit that I am, it's like, like I can break out of anywhere. I can, if I want to go and watch Starsky and Hutch, because I'm not allowed to, I'll go and do it. And I thought, no, we've been cooped up in here a day or more or something like that. Let's go and play on the trampoline, you fellas. Come on, kids, let's go. Because they were going nuts, all crying, wondering what the hell's going on. This is all weird. And so we went and played on the trampoline for a while, and then had to sneak back in go around the block of the units and come and sneak back in. And as we come around this corner, here's this bloke, and he's a painter, and they're painting those units. Wow, he was one of my dad's good mates, and it was like, we've been busted. The look on my face or our faces, or just, and then running away, running inside. He must have gone, what the hell's going on? I wonder if he ever said anything to me, Dad. I don't know. I must find out about that. But I felt real bad that, hang on, I could have, done some cry for help or something like that, or I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I did find out from my dad later on. This big house that they'd built, it wasn't big, but it was nice. They'd built this kitchen. Because my mum wanted to be, she was one of those sort of, I don't know, women can do everything type of thing. That's fine, she wanted to be an architect in those days. You weren't allowed to be an architect, well, especially when you're getting pregnant at school at 15 and can't finish the school. It doesn't help. Doesn't help that you can just think you can do whatever you want. Oh, and there's consequences. Oh, but why can't I still be an architect? Well, there is consequences for things. And anyway, she wanted to be this, and she sort of designed a lot of the stuff in the house, and it was quite a cool kitchen. How you could come in off one part of the lounge room. That lounge in the dining room might have been like an L, and off one end of the dining room you could come in to this kitchen that had these swinging saloon doors that were, from knee height through to, chest height type of thing, like a swinging saloon door, sort of like in the cowboy movies. And then at the other end of it there was another one, so you could sort of walk through the kitchen. The wall part would have been pantry or something like that, and cupboards. And he told me that he came home that night, however late that was, it could have been quite late, he might have gone, there might have been a time when he'd planned on going hunting, or who knows what it was, but he came home that night, would have been drunk, the house is empty, and there's a note hanging on those saloon doors that gone or something, whatever. I always thought that was pretty harsh. What would he have felt like? Your whole family's just been taken, and did they all want to go? Did anyone fight to stay? Yeah. That would have been a hard thing for him. And it's hard to think about that, because all my younger brothers were definitely programmed to believe that she was a victim of domestic abuse, and I'm the only one old enough to know that probably wasn't the case, and in fact it probably was the other way around, with all the fights being started. I think she wanted something, she wanted a drama. Who knows? But hard to say what goes on in her head. That would be a deep dive. That probably too hard. So anyway, we're at this motel. We'd sort of been busted. I can't remember if I told my mother that when she came back or not. But we got bundled onto a plane and we went to a bunch of different schools. I think we went down to the grandmother's place in the bottom end of the other island and hid out for a while, and went to that town's school, and then the next town over's school, and then I think it was 6 months later that the bloke that she'd sort of organised all this with, he stayed working for him for 6 months. So it didn't seem like it was related. You know what I mean? He's going to find out one day. Fuck. What the hell? Anyway. 6 months later, he came down. He might have to sort of get his car affairs and bits and pieces sorted or whatever. I don't know. Came down with a cool car. I thought it was a cool bloke, Anyway. Meanwhile, we were, especially that first 6 months, tired down the bones of our ass, no money and all that sort of stuff, eating nothing. The grandmother on her side was an absolute nutcase psycho. The way she would chase around. Here's a story for you. This is how sometimes these scenarios get created by the backgrounds of the people before. Words aren't coming to me, but yeah. So my mother's mother, fell in love with this bloke, and this was a family that had a big farm, and she was hoping to get this big farm at the end of it, get some status or something like that out of it. And anyway, so she was with this bloke. Then she found out that he wasn't the oldest one, and he wasn't going to be in line to get the farm. So she moved up. Yeah, she did that. And then this bloke was a little bit simple. Honestly, he's a funny bloke, but he's a little bit simple. And she just absolutely treated him like such an asshole. Just talked down to him. I remember when we'd gone down there, I remember her abusing him and then chasing him around with a broom, whacking him with the broom. He's running down the driveway and she's whacking him with it. He's a big farmer bloke, big shearer and all this sort of stuff, like big tough bloke. But she's just mentally beating him down, mentally running him down. And then, actually, before that, she had another bloke who'd come back from the war. There's an actual grandfather on that side, and had come back from the war a bit screwed up, and like a bloke that was a decent bloke. He was going to be a priest and all sorts of stuff. He's a really nice bloke, but something happened in the war. He got court-martialed for fighting back against his commanding officer, and then his life was turned to shit, and he found the drink, and must have seen some things over in North Africa in the war, World War II, and come back to her. I don't know if they married before or after, but I'd say not. But anyway, she's latched onto him and just absolutely run him into the ground. And then until there was nothing left, and then she left, and then found this other fella and all this sort of stuff. So that's the type of background my mother had. And one of her brothers, I think it might be a half brother, an older brother, he had a weird thing too, where he was going out with this girl, married, maybe, then decided no, he's going to marry her mother. And I don't know if he's still alive. I think he could be, but to this day, it's like, whoa, man, that's weird, right? That is weird as. So, as far as any sort of normal type of thing, my mother didn't have any real idea of how relationships probably could be or should be. And so, when she wasn't getting her way with her yelling and screaming and abusing and smashing her plates and who knows what else, she probably tried I don't know if my dad knew about this, her and the other fella, while it was happening, but she would have had to get a what do you call it, safety net to, some other bloke to look after her type of thing. She would have wanted that. And I think he tried to get away a few times, as our stepfather and stuff. He tried to get away, tried to break it off a few times. I think that's how my mother and I ended up back up there to sort of some sort of mediation, like a 2-week thing, to see if it was going to work out again. It was probably because he took off, this other fella. He probably took off. I know he took off to Australia at one stage. Anyway, I know my mother would have made sure she got pregnant, which she did. I've got another half brother because of that, and she would have gotten pregnant to lock this bloke in because he was trying to get away. He was thinking, oh, this bird's nuts. Another time I'll talk about how she gaslit him up. I don't even know what gaslit is. I might have to look that up and try and understand that term, but I know she played the hell out of him. And it got to the stage one time where I called her out for setting them on to my brothers for mental abuse. She didn't know that I was visiting, and I'd left home by that stage, and I was eating or something, and she didn't know that I was visiting, and in the lounge room, she didn't know that I was there. The thing that she was trying to do to my brother, and then sort of set up so that the stepfather would go and do this thing. I could read it all. What was happening, and then when he did turn up, the stepfather, and she was whispering away to him, I went and gave her a piece of my mind of why. Oh, I guess we're not waiting. I guess I'm telling you now. I gave her a piece of my mind as to what she was doing was wrong. The thing that she was doing to my brother was wrong. And the thing that she was doing by getting the stepfather to play some other mental games on my brother to get her to do what she wanted, petty stuff, just control freak shit, was just wrong. And so I was talking to her in a very frank way, right in front of him, and he didn't appreciate me talking to his wife in his home in that way, and that was totally fair enough. I said, mate, I fully appreciate what you're saying. It is your house, and but it is also my mother, and I'll talk to her however I fucking like, so I'll step outside if you like, and I'll tell her I'll continue to tell her what I think of her. But he decided he wanted to have a fight about that. So that was interesting. That he wanted to have a fight. It's a male thing. It's a macho thing. It's keeping control. You can't let the young bucks come and sort of step you out. But if you're wrong in the whole meaning of what you're doing, and the other one's right, well, it's a sweet victory if it comes right, doesn't it? It's like the old David and Goliath and all sorts of things, maybe, I don't know. But I do remember this vividly, and so I stepped outside, and he come straight out at me. He was going to have a fight, and there's a mud puddle outside, I remember that. I stepped aside so I wasn't standing in the mud puddle, and he came running at me. And I was pretty good. In those days. I did this little duck and weave under his arm and sent him on his way. He came back again, like the matador and the bull, It was just like that. And I know, because I'm 18 at this stage, 19 or something like that, 19 even maybe. So yeah, we're talking 10 years after the whole kidnapping incident, and I'd gone to live with me dad and grandparents and all that sort of thing in that time. But I ended up back down there when I was 17 or so because I wanted to make sure that I still had a connection with my brothers, because I really felt that I'd abandoned them. So when I got an opportunity to transfer my apprenticeship down to there, I did that. And geez, there was some hard times down there then, but at least I got a connection with my brothers from it. And I wanted to make sure that they weren't too screwed up and abandoned and stuff like that. I sort of wanted to make sure they were alright. But in the times, in the 10 years since, I'd hear me dad talking about this fella that used to work for him that took off with all his family, and I'd hear him talking to his mates and stuff. If I ever see that bloke again, I'm just gonna grab him round the throat. And my dad was very strong, and when he's telling that story, it's going in. So I had no plan of what I was going to do in this little scuffle, but I did want to tell him. I didn't actually want to hurt him. Funnily enough, I just felt sorry for him. I felt pity. But I did want him to know that he was being played, and it was just obvious as hell. It was embarrassingly obvious for him. So here he is. He's coming back again for another go. And like a bull running at me, and like a little wrestler coming at me, and my mother's screaming standing at the doorway, the kitchen doorway, and there's new houses being built over in the various places, and her and him had a building company by that stage. They were building houses up and down that area and all that sort of thing, and there was neighbours over in the backyards. No fences yet, because it was a new sort of subdivision that was just sort of being created by them, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs, "Stop it! Stop it! What will the neighbours think?" Well, if you're gonna go around screaming, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" at the top of your lungs, what will the neighbours think? On the border of your, of course they're going to turn around and look. Duh. But what also happened is all the other kids came to the door and looking around the corner. They wanted to see what was going to happen here. This was, oh shit, this is what we've been waiting for. All the times that we've been abused, and all this mental abuse. What's going to happen? Is there a way out? What if we stand up? Can we get out? What if we, And it was a reflex or something where I just grabbed him around the throat. I just stopped, grabbed him around the throat, and I looked him in the eye, and I spoke very quietly but very firmly, enough that the kids and the mother probably would hear actually. But I wasn't yelling, but I was very firm, and I said, "Mate, she is playing you like a banjo. She is making you look like a total dick. You need to work out what you need to do with your life, mate, because there's no future if you hang around with her. She's just ruining you, and she's using you to play her games with everyone else." Well, he calmed down instantly. Not only calmed down, I think I broke him. So I headed off after that. I said my piece and stood my ground, headed off. It was a big day. It was a big day standing up. I was like standing up for my dad, I was standing up for my brothers, I was standing up for myself, I was standing up to my mother, and letting her know that you just can't get away with doing that shit. Playing those mongrel games that she'd been taught by her mother, probably, and that her mother had gotten away with. Well, not really. All that whole side of the family, they're all dog eat dog and just busy eating each other and ripping each other off. got all these stories about that stuff. And so, yeah, I guess, does that cover all the kidnapping? Yeah, I guess so. I did get that bike later on, and I refurbished that bike when I came back to town. It sort of had some sentimental meaning, you know. I do remember seeing that painter fella a few more times afterwards, you know, at my dad's parties and what have you. I'd love to know what he thought about that. I might find out. I'd ask my dad if he knew anything about it. So there you go. There's a kidnapping story from an INFJ's point of view. I don't know whether we got any born or created stuff out of that, but you learn to notice everything when you've got all that turmoil. Maybe just the fact that my mother was just so much whatever she was. It might be enough to keep you on guard. But the funny thing is, I think my other brothers are different personalities. So is it just me, being the oldest one, that got the full essence of her and all that stuff? How does that work? Anyway, that's enough for now. I'm out.